Hello! So this is something that I am extremely excited to share with the community. So basically, when independent training was released in Raecord, we started comparing runs, comparing the stat outputs of runs, and seeing how all of those fit together. Initially, we were doing a lot of word of mouth and just personal data parsing, but eventually our admin and incredible coder of Fujibot Ash managed to make a functionality of Fujibot that is able to read values off of screenshots and do the data entry automatically rather than manually. This frees up a lot of time and enables us to get a lot of runs. And so what we've been doing is we've been having people upload screenshots of their independent training runs and having Fujibot parse them. So after Fujibot parses them, it is then sent to a review. We have a small team on staff to review all of Fujibot's data so that we can make sure that there's no bad recordings or bad data that Fujibot has, erroneously given. We do things like double checking the cards used, the limit breaks on the cards, the race bonus data, things like that, just to make sure that all of the data that gets recorded is accurate. And now I am very, very excited to kind of release this page of insights that we have gotten through the 532 runs that we have had Fuji record and that we on this team have approved as accurate. So we're still processing runs. We're kind of eternally processing runs, but this page is a really great breakdown of a lot of the data that we have been able to obtain in Raecord just through people doing their runs, sending screenshots of the results of their runs, and then having us parse that data. We have also been working with Loopcord in order to figure out how to best use our data sets together. There is a little bit of a difference between how Raecord and Loopcord is taking in data. Loopcord is definitely a little bit more precise, where they are putting more restrictions and regulations along what kinds of runs are allowed to be entered into their data set, whereas Raecord is going for a more volume-first data approach, where we're just taking as much data as we can so that we can surface a larger amount of data. And we're working to see if we can collapse some of our data together in order to make a community-based resource that would work best for everyone. For now, though, this is what we've been able to accomplish on Raecord. I'm going to go ahead and take you through the page really quickly, but the link is in the description. Additionally, the link to the Loopacord Excel sheet is also in the description. This is the Excel sheet that a lot of people have already been passing around, which is extremely useful and is showing a lot of the data that they have been collecting as well. I highly recommend checking both of these out. I think that they're both really great and I am excited to share them. So the first thing that we're going to see here is the quick caveat. These are measurements, not advice. Every number that we're seeing here is a median, and the mean will be beside it in gray. And so all of our data values are read by a bot and then reviewed and approved by a member of our team. If we do have this symbol here, it means that the mean and median are far apart, which might mean that there is just a couple of outlying runs, or it can mean that there's just not very many runs recorded. When we have fewer than 5 runs of data, we are making sure that we communicate that that the amount of runs that we have are not very high. But we do have 532 approved runs with 3,100 support cards read, 119 distinct support cards seen, and we are also looking a little bit at sparks and skill hints. Now, our skill hints are not very comprehensive because when we were first starting out, we were not having people surface the skill hints page. So we don't factor in the non-skill hint page UMAs into our skill hint calculations. It is true that we have less data there than 532 runs worth. You can see here, this is some of our race stats. The average number of races that people are running is 28 with 42% perfect careers. We're getting about an average of 700,000 fans and about 24,000 fans per race on average. And we have a few quick statistics here about just careers that are lost. This is a table that I have been very, very excited to show off. So one of the things that I've been really interested in this independent training is how much race bonus affects the amount of SP and stats that you're getting from events as opposed to stats that you get from your cards. And I do think that there is a trend here that when we're looking at SP from events, the higher race bonus that you have, the more SP that we are getting from events. Additionally, this also means that we are getting an increased amount of stats from events on average, although you can see here that 60% is averaging a little bit less than 50%, but 60% only has 19 runs recorded. So it is just an interesting correlation here that if we are including more race bonus cards, then the stats that those cards are returning might not only be surfaced in those card-specific attributes. You might want to look at your race bonus and how that race bonus might be giving you more or less stats based on which cards you're using. And then when we're looking here, we are comparing 26 races versus 29 races here, and we can see that the more races that we do, obviously we are getting more SP from events. However, the more races we do, we are getting less SP from cards. And it does make sense when you consider that we are taking more turns to do clicks, which means that we're getting more returns from our cards rather than less when we are are racing less. So now we're looking at scenario stats here. These are comparisons between different scenarios. As you can see, Grand Concert will give us definitely way more skill points and a much higher stat total. One thing that we have noticed about this table is that our Unity Cup runs are consistently getting more skill hints than Grand Concert runs, which is pretty interesting, although we don't have a very large sample size, so I'm not, staking my whole career on this, but it is interesting to see early data returning, suggesting that Unity Cup might actually be very good for trying to farm specific skill hints. And now this is probably the part of the page that everybody is most interested in. So this is looking at the support cards and the returns that they're giving. And right now it's filtered by number of runs, but we can also filter it by the highest speed gains or the most skill points gained, so on and so forth. But when we're looking just at number of runs, we can see a couple trends here where we have cards such as Light Hello returning a very high number of skill points. Now you can see that because this is the median, we are looking at a medium level of a 3 LB Light Hello. If we're interested in seeing what an MLB Light Hello return looks like, we can go ahead and expand this and look here. This is the MLB Light Hello return, and we are looking at maybe about 100 more skill points on average than a 0 LB Light Hello. So if I'm using Light Hello and I am very interested in getting a lot of skill points, I might consider borrowing one at MLB instead of using my own 0 LB. You can use this search here to sort through a lot of cards, such as if I wanted to find what Kita-san was doing here. I could go ahead and just type in Kita-san in the search, and then I can see what the returns have been with 4 LB or 3 LB. If I was curious about something like Throne's Assemblage, I could look at this, and then I could see what people have used Throne's Assemblage 4 LB, 0 LB, even 2 LB. There's been a couple runs recorded, so I can filter by that. I've actually used this information this morning to try and find a 5th card to borrow for one of my Metro Orion runs. I was looking for a power card that would give me a lot of high returns, and I was already using Marvelous Sunday. So when I was looking through this, I noticed that the SR Agnes Digital Power actually has a very nice amount of total stats and skill points returned, so I considered using that. And then as I was scrolling through this, I also noticed that the Air Groove Power also has a very high skill point and total stat return. Because Air Groove Power also has some skills that I want to use on it, I decided to borrow that. And then when I borrowed that, I was able to get over 1100 power and speed on my Uma while also getting a lot of skill points and definitely getting above an SS rank. After we get skill cards here, we can go ahead and look at training mode. This data I'm not taking as law here just because we don't really have a lot of runs for balanced or sprint compared to our stamina. A lot of people are running stamina just because we're trying to get over that 600 stamina threshold. That would generally be my recommendation for it. So overall, I wouldn't take a lot of this data here as law. But when we go down to our training outfits here, this is also pretty interesting because it shows how many runs that people have done with specific Umas and certain things such as returns. From here, we can actually notice that Mayana Top Gun has an outsized amount of SP compared to a lot of other Umas. But again, we can go ahead and just filter down. So if I wanted to look for Fuji, we can look at Fuji here. Some people are using Fuji to run for parents, so that's pretty fun. So this is a great way that we can check for outliers or, just look up Umas that we run. I don't think that the training outfit data is extremely relevant to like trying to min-max certain runs, but I do think that it's interesting to see how many people are doing certain runs with certain Umas. So that's it for a quick overview of this page. I have linked to it in the description as well as linking to the Raecord page. We are still in contact and we are trying to continue our work together to make sure that we can give as much information to the community as possible. Thank you guys for all of your support. I want to give a special shout out to Ash in particular, who made all of this possible through Fujibot being able to read this data. I also want to give a quick shout out to all of the members that we have who are submitting data. It's very, very helpful to us to get as many runs as possible. And then additionally, I want to give a quick shout out to our team who is working on approving all of the data and cross-checking it to make sure that it's accurate. We couldn't do any of this without you, so I really, really appreciate that. And I hope that this is helpful for some folks. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and I will see you later. Bye!